I had the great pleasure of serving with the Association of Public and Land-Grant Universities as a civic science fellow for 2 years working on this initiative. And this initiative was born out of the motivation with APLU, which is an association that supports over 300 institutions of higher education in the United States, to really help to catalyze and support the public mission of these institutions, to recognize that there are ways that our institutions must do a better job of supporting a subset of scholars who are really dedicated to supporting and serving public impact and supporting the public good. And so they, over the course of the entire history of APLU, have been working in various forms and capacities to serve this public good, and felt that the time was right to really support a series of efforts that crystallize guidance, especially for university leaders, to really think about what collective action and reform in this space might look like. The major elements of the report include the 8 areas of strategic action, a series of case studies, which 2 types of case studies that illustrate the process of institutional change, and case studies that illustrate successful change initiatives at a variety of different types of institutions. A set of key learnings from the entire initiative, and then a database that comprises a series of actions and tactics that you, as an agent of change in your institutional context, might be able to use in trying to think about actions that you might take to help create a more permissive, supportive environment for engaged and equity-oriented scholars in your context. So the 8 areas of strategic action were derived from, I won't say comprehensive because I don't believe that there can be such a thing as a comprehensive literature review, but an extremely extensive literature review that myself and several students conducted over the course of several years. And what these 8 areas of strategic action represent are umbrellas of how these many, many different actions clustered together. These actions include developing and installing committed institutional leaders. And so a second major area of attention is overhauling, reforming, promotion, retention, promotion, and tenure practices. The third major area is investing in institutional structures and networks, right? It's really trying to think about what types of infrastructures are needed in order to be able to serve these missions. Number 4, to establish both the data structures and the reporting structures, the human structures to interact with that data to help support this work on an institutional level. The next up are launching and maintaining catalytic funding programs. The next 2 are around capacity building broadly, specifically around engagement, building capacities through professional development, through different types of fellowship programs, and mentoring programs among faculty, and then through both formal curricular training and other types of professional development training for students. And then finally, attending to culture and really uplifting and celebrating work, both through awards and other systems of recognition. And here's the kicker. Not everyone is equipped to be able to pursue different types of actions. Some groups, some individuals are best positioned to advance specific types of strategies. If you navigate into the Open Science Framework repository, and you access, click on this link, access and tips to navigate this database of strategic actions, what you'll eventually open is this database. And in this database, what you'll see is, and actually let me eliminate this right now, is a whole series of cards. We've structured the information of cards that are organized in a few different ways to hopefully make it easier to navigate. Once you've narrowed down the actions that you're interested in exploring, what you can do is click into one of these cards, and you can navigate one of these cards in the following way. The name is hopefully pretty straightforward. The description will unpack what it means. Implementation will tell you the various different places that in a university that might be interested or might be partners in implementation. Possible actions or specific things you might do. The literature basis is where we drew this information from if you want to dig into it. If there were real world examples that we drew from, we listed them, including our citations, and then there's some additional information down at the bottom. I think that one of the big takeaways that I came away with from this report is that everything really is contextual. If you know one university, you know one university. There are strengths about your institution, and in order to be able to be an effective change agent, part of your job is to identify those strengths, build on them, and then create the catalyzing conditions to be able to enable change to happen. That change doesn't happen because one person wants it to. There has to be the conditions that make it ready. That when you're talking about big changes, especially big changes that require shifts in culture, you need a lot of commitment. And that commitment frequently takes the time of a lot of time, or frequently takes the form of either a lot of time or a lot of money. So the two process case studies that I highlighted, the University of Arizona and the University of Michigan, are good comparisons for that. Arizona's case study, if you read into the details of it, really unfolded over 25 years and is still in process. And that's what I mean about a lot of time. It spanned multiple administrations, multiple vice provosts for academic affairs, and a lot of commitment from a lot of individuals over an extended period of time. The University of Michigan also involved a lot of time, but comparatively, 5 years is less than 25 years. So we've got an order of magnitude difference, but it cost $50 million. And so it's important to be a little bit mindful that if you want to move quickly, and 5 years in academic terms tends to be pretty quickly, you have to be ready to make some pretty big commitments to make some big impacts. It's important for me, especially to really highlight that culture is really important, and it eats policy, procedure, and practice for lunch. Um, and what that means to me is that as an institutional change agent, thinking about the difference between a policy, in other words, changing those promotion guidelines, those tenure guidelines, and then changing the procedure, how those guidelines are interpreted at the unit level, and then the practice of how a faculty member might prepare a dossier to align to those guidelines, are all important. Like, those things are all different and important. But if the culture of a department doesn't support that faculty member to be able to articulate their high bar research, their engaged research in that context, they're still not going to do it. And so attending to that, recognizing that, working towards culture change is part of your job as an institutional change agent. Sometimes part of that first idea of creating a readiness for change is about trying to create change in something where you can start moving. So if there is a big change that you're hoping to make, but you're not able to make the big C, capital C change right now, there might be something else that you can shift right now that can help start laying the groundwork. And that can be also a really good motivator. I think that one of the things that really holds our communities collectively back is that we all have our favorite terms, and we get so stuck in arguing about semantics and terminology that we talk past each other, and we don't necessarily like do the hard work of coordinating. So like, as much as I hate to say we need to solve at least some degree of the translation language problem, I think we need to solve some degree of the translation language problem, if only that means becoming conversant in each other's languages, not saying we have to give up our cherished languages, right? Universities that I've seen who have started doing this effectively are really like leveling up, is meaningfully figuring out how to implement data systems that actually track this work in meaningful ways. It's hard to understand how to have universities do better if you don't understand what your baseline is. And so in terms of like supporting institutional and infrastructural investments, I think that like really thinking about both infrastructural and programmatic investments in data and understanding, I think those would be two ones that I would highlight. And there is a quote that I have been carrying with me since she said it to me during an interview almost 2.5 years ago. Um, At the time, she was the senior vice president for research and innovation at the University of Arizona, Elizabeth Cantwell. And she said something to the effect of anything that gets undertaken quickly can be undone equally quickly. And that really, it hit me kind of like a punch to the gut, because I'm a fairly impatient person, and as somebody who loves universities and has I would like to say a strong moral compass, and really desperately wants to see my university better reflect my moral compass. Like, I feel a very strong impetus to try and push the university to change, and to change quickly, right? And so that idea of being thoughtful and deliberative and having that actually be part of good process, it was surprising and it wasn't surprising, but it felt really impactful. Institutional change work is hard, and it's hard for a reason. And I think that if we want to create durable systems, that maybe part of our challenge as institutional change leaders is to lean into that.